Let's turn over then to the other side of the desk because Lauren Berschtick is here with our press review. Good morning.
Good morning.
You're going to be starting us off then talking about what is our top story today, this historic summit in the Korean Peninsula. And as expected, it's really dominating papers around the world.
Yes, that's all everyone is talking about. And the coverage has been very positive so far. The Korea Times has called it a historic summit, the first to be held between the two sides since 65 years since Korea was divided. The article says the tone between the two leaders was friendly, with the South Korean president expressing hopes that they could come to an agreement which would be, and I quote, a big present to the people of the world. Kim Jong-un, meanwhile, said he wants to open a new era of peace.
Well, this meeting, of course, being closely watched, not just in Korea, but also all over the world, particularly in the United States.
Yes, absolutely. And while the summit was largely hailed as a watershed moment, there were some who were questioning Kim Jong-un's motive. That's the case of the New York Times, which published an op-ed written by the founding director of the Committee for Human Rights in North Korea. He argues that if the past is any indicator, Kim Jong-un is likely to give concessions that are vague and that won't be able to be easily verified by South Korea. The North is also very unlikely to formally recognize South Korea as a country. The author then warns Seoul against playing pretend diplomacy with Pyongyang and jumping into a hastily concluded deal.
Let's move on then to another big story today, the conviction of Bill Cosby for sexual assault. That's been making headlines around the world. What have you selected for us?
Well, it's what everybody's talking about again, and The Guardian has called the trial a milestone in the Me Too era. Remember, this is the first high-profile sexual abuse conviction since the start of the Me Too movement. According to the article, the verdict could represent vindication for dozens of women who have come out against the comedian. It could also pave the way for more similar cases to be brought up in the future.
That said, though, we've been talking about this story for really quite a long time, haven't we?
Yes, the first accusations against Bill Cosby came out in 2014. And even as more accusers came forward, there was the sense that he was maybe too famous to be convicted. But the New York Times now argues this verdict could tip the balance in future cases as well, with women who usually had to prove that they were sexually abused. And so the verdict could represent a step in the right direction.
Do we know what happens now for Bill Cosby?
Well, that's exactly the question posed by the CNN article, which lays out the upcoming steps. Cosby will be allowed to go home on bail, but can't leave the state of Pennsylvania and will have to wear an electronic bracelet. He also faces up to 10 years in jail for each count, so that's up to 30 years in total. But Cosby's attorney said the 80-year-old plans to appeal the verdict.
Laurent, let's end then with something a little lighter. Evidence from scientists that we humans coexisted with a species, you tell me, of giant sloth thousands of years ago. What's the story?
Absolutely. These so-called ground sloths were actually really fearsome creatures. They roamed the Earth over 11,000 years ago and could reach the size of an elephant. That's 8 feet tall or 2.5 meters. We knew about these megasloths already, but scientists now found sets of human footprints that appear to be following these sloths. So the question is, why were humans following these massive and quite deadly animals with, I quote, Wolverine-like claws? Well, the most likely answer is that we were hunting them, but there's also a case to be made for human obsession with sloths, and maybe some people were just trying to get a cuddle.
Yeah, that brings us all the way back to today, where they are, I suppose, a very Instagrammable animal. Thank you very much. Lauren Berschtick there with our press review on the programme.